Garden Guy Charlie Stocker is joining us. He's answering your calls. The phone number's at the bottom of your screen this morning if you'd like to call in and ask Charlie a question on what's expected to be a hot weekend. So, Charlie, it's the big first hot weekend of the year with all this humidity. You have any tips for anything we can do to protect our plants, or is it just kind of a part of how nature works in the summer?
Just watering, but watering on a regular basis and not just pell-mell, hitting it one time here and then a week later doing it again, but just on a regular basis, maybe 3 times a week. If you see things wilting, obviously you want to water, and if you water, particularly your tomato plants, always water the ground around the tomato plants. Don't water the tomato plants per se. And mulching is also important. So
we talk about watering. What about the time of day? I know a lot of people really don't like to go out and water, say, their lawns or any of their plants.
Good question.
Middle of the day. If you do that, will that kind of sizzle the plants, or?
You're better off watering in the morning because then if pepper plants, etc., the water has a chance to dry off, so you don't have fungi and disease coming onto the plant.
All right. Well, there's some good advice from Charlie here as things get even hotter over the weekend. We have our first caller for you on the line, Charlie.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Glenda Spencer.
Good morning.
I just want to ask you about insecticides that the farmers spray. If they affect pin oak and weeping willow, they don't seem it. Our poplar and maple trees seem to be doing fine, but the pin oaks and the weeping willow's almost dead, and we have a lot of dead branches on our oak trees the last few years.
Drift. Generally, they use 2,4-D, and also they'll use some dicamba, but it's part of the active ingredients of the sprays that they use. And that drift can, in fact, affect pin oaks. So the best thing for you to do is to get an arborist there, and they can assay what is actually going wrong with the pin oak, and if it is, in fact, from a farmer's field. But that's a good point.
All right, Charlie. Robert from Owensville's on the line next.
Morning, Bob.
Hello, Charlie.
Good morning.
I have a question about blueberries. How do you tell when they're ripe to pick?
Generally, they're going to be purple. I don't mean to sound facetious, but you want to pick them just before they get totally ripe. And you can kind of feel where they're still tight, and you have to pull them off because they will last longer if you pull them off just before they're actually ready to be picked off, if you will. They'll last longer when you store them.
James from Owensboro's on the line next, Charlie.
Morning, James. Good morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I got tomato plants, and my tomatoes are turning, when they get green, they turn black on bottom.
Okay, that's blossom end rot. Blossom end rot comes from, and generally it's the first ones that come out that get the blossom end rot. But most people think, well, it's calcium. It's a lack of calcium, so they do the eggshell thing, or they do the milk thing. You know, they put lime around the base of it. But really, it's not. It's not a lack of calcium in the soil. It's a lack of watering on a regular basis, and then being wet, and then dry, and then wet and dry. So what you need to do is test the soil and find out what the availability of calcium is, but that's most probably not the problem, and you need to water like 3 times a week. Water the base around the tomato plant where it's nice. You get about 1 inch of water per week on the average is what you want. But it's from irregular watering, blossom end rot.
Charlie, our next caller is from Grayville this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
Linda.
Linda, okay.
So what's your question this morning, Linda, for Charlie?
Okay. Well, I received a plant, and I'm not really for sure how to take care of it. It's a tropical plant.
Okay.
And it's called a bromeliad.
Bromeliad, okay. Part of the
Bromeliad beauty, I think, is what it's called.
Part of the orchid family. You need an orchid type of soil mix. They like somewhat not direct sunlight, but indirect sunlight. So maybe putting them on the east side window or on the north side window, where you can read a paper, and just watering and a lot of humidity is basically what you want for the bromeliad. Great plants.
Great answers and some great questions this morning, too, Charlie. Charlie's answering more questions for us in about 20 minutes or so, so stick around if you didn't get your call in. He'll be here. I think he's going to be here.
Oh, yeah.
You tried to flake on us last week. Ron's going to be here giving us the weather, too. Ron, the weather outside, extreme.